Okay, I'm going to clarify about warming up a horse. It usually takes me a good 45 minutes to an hour for my horses that I warm up before I make a run, just so I know that they're good and supple and their muscles are, and their tendons and everything are warmed up. But I will walk a horse a good 30 minutes before I actually make my run. And every horse is different, but that's your opinion. But sometimes there's a lot of girls that just go ahead and warm the horse 10-15 minutes. But I think they need to be really good and warmed up, so I make sure that I try to get on them at that time. And then also to all your blankets and all the stuff that we had talked about before, that also helps in your warm up. So, and then once I warm them up, I go and kind of relax and stretch them out, do some stretching exercises, and then go make my run and kind of take a couple deep breaths and concentrate. And then when we're walking and trotting around the barrels, what I do when I get to a rodeo is I try to go and look and see where the timer's set up and where the first barrel's staked at. And then that'll kind of give me an idea of what I want, how I want to make my run. And because I think that your first barrel is your money barrel, and if your first barrel's set up correctly, then the rest of your run will be set up correctly. And then it could be a long stake or short stake, and making that horse run. If you have a horse that really is free runner, then you need to start him, a couple jumps before the timer, not at the back of the alleyway. And there's a lot of people that when you get to the first barrel, you need to say ho and sit down and go ahead. Now on Jed, this horse, I don't really say ho because he has a lot of set in him. So I just walk and trot the barrels and never stop him. I look at my point, which my point is I try to use is just looking at or past the barrel, and then not look at the barrel because he wants to drop in or my body wants to drop in. So I got to really over exaggerate him and myself, not looking at the barrel and making sure that he goes around my leg when I'm asking him to come around that turn. And then I really make sure that my hands are forward, low on his neck so they're not high. And then when I get to that third barrel, I can just barely pick him up and then ask him to come around the barrel or my leg. I always say my leg because I really don't want him coming around on top of the barrel, obviously. And I really use my leg and my feet here. He's really kind of wanting to push that hock underneath him. And then I always go to, yes. Right. Yeah, I always go about, my leg is even with that barrel. Like when I'm walking, trotting, loping, I over-exaggerate it big time, just because it helps me and of course this horse. Now with Doc, or other horses that I ride, I would say ho a stride before, set him in the ground. But with Jed, I go right even, and then I go ahead and ask that horse to turn, making sure that my hands are not pulling back on him, they're just laid on his neck. And forward, like, so if you get in a bind, all you have to do is shove your hand forward, and that horse should, if he's not having a bad day, which I've had lots of bad days with Jed, but you can push him forward with your hand, depending on where your hand is. But if your hands are way up here, you can't do anything. So I make sure that what I try to do is try to keep my hands low on his neck, so if I have to shove him forward, I can just lift him up. Right here, same thing, just lifting my hand forward, and he knows to shove his body forward. We'll go trot the pattern and see, makes a difference where we really maybe try to use our hands. You can watch my hands and asking that horse to turn, because that is important, especially when you're making these runs. Lots of people don't want to sit and say ho and ask that horse to turn. They're pulling straight back, which is not a good not a good thing. If you can't trust your horse and you're pulling back, then everything gets off kilter from there on your first barrel. So I'll make him sit in my hand. If he starts to pull on me, I'll back him up, make sure he's calm and cool in the alley, because what happens, these horses make these runs all the time and they are on the muscle. So if he starts off at the back of the alleyway and I don't have any control, well, guess what? My first barrel is going to be out of control and then my whole run's off. So make sure he's in my hands and we'll trot. And now I won't stop him. I'll send him in there pretty straight. And then he knows, lift my hand, get his nose. We'll go around it twice. Sure he's going around my leg. And then I try to really finish it. We'll back him off, trot, so he knows to switch leads. And then right here, just barely pick my hand up, get him marking around my leg. Over exaggerate it when I'm loping. Easy. See, he wanted to start his turn too early, so I kicked him with my outside leg to push that hock underneath it. And I always come so my horses will finish that third barrel.
Okay, Liz, now I've got a couple of questions I know our viewers are dying to know from you.
Okay.
First of all, we were talking earlier before the show about how people like to pull, and you have a different system on how to go the first barrel and how to handle your horse around a barrel. So show me and talk about your hands rather than pulling back, how you approach it.
Well, when I go to the first barrel, of course, we're here, I'm always kind of forward. But then when I know that I got to start that turn, I say ho, and I ask that horse to turn. Instead of pulling up or pulling back, I just ask the horse to turn. Pretty much you can lay your hand on his neck and he'll turn that barrel. And trust your horse. Most everybody, what happens is we get afraid, oh my gosh, he's not going to turn, he's running too fast. And of course then we start pulling back, and I'm guilty of it too, and we don't trust our horse and our instincts and just let it roll and let our subconscious take over.
Which costs you time.
Right, which costs you time, and then of course then your run is out of whack. Mm-hmm. And then it goes south from there. If you don't get your first barrel and really know that you have a good first barrel, mm-hmm. then to me,
but you're talking riding that like on every barrel. We're just right. Showing on the first barrel how you'd pick up your hand and move him forward.
And just shove him forward and say ho, and just sit right there and ask that horse to turn, mm-hmm. and trust in that horse.
And a while ago he was trying to, this is the next question, he was trying to get in a little too early on you on the third barrel, and you said I kicked that hind leg over. Tell me why you did that, and kind of show us how you did that to kind of help our viewers at home for horses that are trying to drop in a little too early.
Right. On the third barrel, he was trying to drop in, and he started his turn way too early. Well, his hind end he started to drop his front end, and his hind end was already kind of starting to swing. So what I did is I kicked him with my outside foot and kind of put that pressure on him, so that drove his rear end underneath him, and then I pushed him forward with my hands.
So it keeps him more straight, right? Moving around that turn instead of starting that turn too early and dropping that shoulder.